Hey, we are live. No countdown. And I have. I think we can see that without. Not good. Oh no. Speeders are broken. Tawny waters. I have to go through. I have to remember to go back and fix the autocorrect on the when I set the Hangout up. It
Okay.
autocorrected to a Y, and I didn't know since after went live. Yeah. Speeders are broken. I read it way back in June. Actually,
Wow.
yes, I got it done.
Oh, I remember you saying you read it in the first week of or whatever.
I'm
Yeah,
so proud of myself not waiting until the last minute.
I read it about a month ago also. But I wrote down a long list of all the things I hated about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, so the one thing that I remember was like, how do you live in New Mexico and not know what folklorico is? Like, seriously, in what part of New Mexico do you not know what folklorico is? And it's one of those things that I've lived in a small town in New Mexico, and I'm like, I just don't understand. But yeah. So that was the one thing that I remember that irritated me. I'm sure there were more. And I'm sure that there are many of things on your list that are also on mine.
Yeah. Do you remember generally what your feelings were about the book?
I was kind of like, this is a little bit more fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, I think about living in because I tried to like experience of living in small town New Mexico, and I'm like, okay, so there is a town that exists that really there's only one church. Was where I lived. There's like more churches than anything else, and the church runs the town, and I'm like. And then it happens to be the preacher's son who is like the evil one, and I think it was kind of trite. Uh, really, really,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for me, I was very frustrated with how it was very black and white about Christianity and like the Christian characters, like it wasn't enough for them to be just like stereotypical, like hypocritical Christian characters. They were like abusive or a rapist. Like, let me really drill the point home here about how much I hate the Christian people in this book. And then like the good people are like, I am a spiritual Native American of no, unspecified tribe who has psychic powers, and like I am a New Age hippie goddess or worshiping goddesses person.
Yeah. This is gonna be a short conversation.
Oh, it was a little too extreme for me.
Yeah. So, Pam, you said you had problems getting into it before we went out.
Yeah.
You want to talk about it a bit?
I don't know. I didn't like. Oh my gosh, I just didn't like the narration, like the style of, like it kind of was like depressing and I didn't flow very well or something. I don't.
Yeah, I had a really hard time picturing the narrator as a 16-year-old because she talked like a 10-year-old.
Yes, that's thank you. Yes.
It was really weird.
That's it.
Which is interesting because I was looking for when I was looking for discussion questions, see if I could actually find discussion questions. I didn't find any, by the way, but I did see a few reviews, and they were all praising the writing. It's like, oh, she's a poet, and you can really tell the lyric quality, and I'm like, Okay. Um, there was another one that said it's not just a love story, but it's about, people and relationships in small town New Mexico. And I'm like, okay. I think it was too many things, too many things, and that that took away, I think, some of the believability of it. It made it feel a bit inauthentic.
Yeah.
I was excited before, like, when the book was picked. I was excited. It's like, oh yeah, small town New Mexico. I can give this to my kids, and they can really, really relate to it. It'd be great.
Yeah.
And then, nothing looked like small town New Mexico.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna, I see it as if you're gonna set a book in New Mexico, and you mentioned the Native Americans. If you're gonna set a book in New Mexico, there are specific tribes in northern New Mexico. And like I know people who've taught on different reservations.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was reading that it said she lived in Albuquerque for a while. But so you know, I don't know if it was she's trying not to unfairly represent or inaccurately represent one of the Native American tribes in New Mexico, and that's why it's ambiguous. But it made it harder to connect with.
Yeah, if you're gonna have a character like that, you can't just get out of doing your research by just being like, he's some unspecified Native American. I mean, it does Native American things. No, that's not character development.
with the spear fingers.
American things. I know, yeah. Yeah, as far as like you said something about her like trying to do too much, like the plotting was really weird because it's like there's this whole like build up to this like relationship, right? And there's this like, oh, they're in love, and then it's like Dahlia, whatever her name is, leaves town, and then it's like she's like never heard of again until what's her face, Mara needs to get out of town. But like everything in between there is just like then Mara's thing with her family and she gets raped and her brother dies, and then it's like, wait, what happened to you? You were in love with this other woman, and like now you're just like, oh, at the very end you're like, oh good, I can go run away and leave my horrible situation. So she basically was just like an escape hatch at the end of the story. And I was like, what is the point of building up this whole relationship if you're just going to be like, oh, let's just ignore that now for 50 pages so we can have all this other crap happen to her, and then she has somewhere to go at the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was reading, I was like, oh, so Xyla leaves, so we must be close. Because I read the ebook version, we must be close to the end of the book. Because
Yeah.
that is like the thing. It's they have this relationship, and they can't they can't like keep the relationship because of where they are and whatever, and then it didn't stop. Yeah.
What did I want to say? Also about her brother. I hated everything about the story with her brother. Because she never accepts him after he gets brain damage. Like she just uses like slurs against him and like just keeps hoping he's gonna magically return to his quote unquote normal self. And once she gets friends, she basically like at the beginning you think they have this like super close relationship and it's like this great sweet brother sister story with an abusive father, and then she like gets all these friends and then just like ignores him for the majority of the book, except to be like, oh, I wish my brother was normal, and then like conveniently he dies, and so then they never have to have any like resolution to that. Like, what was the point of that whole plot? It made me so mad.
Yeah, I think there could have been really interesting conversation about traumatic brain injury and how different people's brains heal or don't heal from traumatic brain injury. There's a really big missed opportunity there. Especially because it's not, at least, in the conversations that I've heard, it's not something that's talked about a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she never seems to accept him as like a human being once he gets brain damaged. He's just like a annoyance, and she just wishes that he was his old self, and like that's basically all he. Like then she's sad when he dies. Like I don't know. He's basically, like he ends up like standing up to their father.
Yeah, you mean how he ends up with traumatic brain injury?
No, at the end, but before because he gets kicked out. Yeah, like I think he basically would just like serve a plot point to be like, oh, he ended up standing up to their father, and then that was convenient, and now let's have him get kicked out of the house, and then he gets killed.
It was kind of like for a second we get a glimpse of old Iggy, and she's like, and then no, not really.
Yeah. So they never get to have any sort of resolution or new relationship as his new self, and she never really comes to appreciate him as who he is now. Like, none of that. It's just like a plot point, and then he's dead.
Maybe people argue that, well, that's realistic, because some people have a hard time accepting it, and then not all relationships have resolutions. I don't really like that in my books. But
right, and that's what I say is like just because something's realistic doesn't mean you have to write that into a narrative. Like right. that's not the representation that we don't need more of that. We don't need more of brain damaged people being treated terribly. And people, using slurs against them as the first person narrator and never realizing ever that that's a problem. Anyway, especially if you're writing it a young adult book.
Yeah, right. So, and actually, did I tell you guys that I changed the topic of my dissertation?
No.
So I'm gonna look at representation of Black characters and their interactions within the criminal justice system, and it kind of speaks to the same thing. It's like, okay, so what kind of representation are we getting? And it all started with All American Boys, which it looks like it's going to be our next read.
Cool.
But very similar. It's like, okay, so let's as in here, let's make these behaviors and these thoughts and these ways of interacting between people who have a disability normalized, and like the negative reactions or negative interactions, and we just, like you said, we don't need that. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and it's not to say that every person who writes for teenagers needs to write this like story with all these model characters who all like show the most like politically correct way to act in all situations. Like, no, you can have people who are realistic, but then at least have some character growth and have some learning.
The struggle.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like we really saw her struggle.
No, not at all. Everything was just conveniently kind of taken care of, I guess, at the end. What else did I hear about this book? I thought it was weird that the whole thing about like the main character gets raped and then she just like loses her mind for 2 months and then cuts all her hair off and that like magically restores her sanity.
It's like Samson and Delilah. Except opposite.
Except opposite, yeah. But not.
I know that's probably what I thought at the time.
Yeah.
Like, this is like the exact opposite of.
I did not really understand the point of that, and it did not. Again, it did not seem to show any sort of healthy coping mechanisms or healing for an assault like that. It
Yeah.
was just another weird, divergent plot point that didn't seem to have a purpose.
Well, no, it was like building to that point because he's trying to. No, I can't even try and play devil's advocate with that one. I was gonna try.
I know you were.
I can't do it.
Effort.
Oh goodness.
Weird book. I don't know.
I said it wasn't gonna be a long conversation.
Yep. I think on the sentence level, like I think some of the writing was good, but you got to be able to plot, and you got to be able to write characters
Yeah.
that are not just bizarre stereotypes, and yeah. It's so frustrating because when you see someone who like does actually have some like writing ability at, like I said, at the sentence level, it's like do your research, like figure out how to avoid some of these stereotypes and like have people give you honest feedback about plotting, and then I think that she could have actually written a decent book. But
yeah, there is potential there for some great conversation, like some great. They're pieces that don't really come together the way I would like them to.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it could have been a lot more.
I'm also not sure I believe. I believe in like small town, no technology. Does this exist? I mean, I understand that small towns can sometimes be behind the times.
Yeah.
Because less money and things, but really?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out when it was supposed to be set, because wasn't it felt like it was set several decades ago, but then it was actually supposed to be set like in present day, right?
Yeah, it was. I think her dad kept her from having, like he said, no cell phone, no computer, which is one way to try and make a novel a little bit more timeless, and relatable with like in the future. It's like, oh, I understand what this is like, not being able to have access to the internet. Okay, but I didn't. Lots of things I added to the list of things I didn't believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We should keep a tally of the books that we read that like people like and don't like, and maybe we can use that to inform us in the future.
Yeah.
We can make informed decisions about like what to read based on the things that the majority of us enjoy or have good conversation about.
Right. Well, and we've talked about like the fact that we open nominations up to everyone, but then we have people nominate stuff and then leave the group and never do anything.
Yeah.
We get in the face.
We would have had a new person this time.
Mm-hmm.
It was my fault. I was supposed to lend her the book, and then I couldn't figure out how to do it. Another student in my program.
Okay.
So next time, because I know the book is at the library.
Okay.
Good.
Sweet. So we'll have some new blood.
Okay, cool.
Anything else that we want to say before call it?
What else did I'm just reading my. There's all sorts of other things I didn't like about the book, but it's probably not worth going into. More things that didn't make any sense, but. think we're in consensus that we would not recommend this book.
No, no. And it's not one that I think I'm going to hand my students.
I wouldn't.
So, it looks like that is it. Next time, we are reading All American Boys by Jason Reynolds and Brennan Keeley. It's going to be an awesome discussion. I'm 100% certain of this.
Good.
I read it, but I think it's going to be like a timely conversation about perspectives, and I think that could be fantastic.
Great. Looking forward to it.
All right, I'm gonna stop the broadcast.
All right.